But before I actually start saying a few words, I wanted to just show you two videos which obviously has an impact on development and some of the more current issues that has a cross-cutting phenomena, and not just in certain sectors but across all sectors of society, including, of course, not only specific to one country but specific to all the countries in the world. We start off with the first one, please.
Previously, we were buying the packet 140, for now it is 180. The salad, we used to buy around 180 per liter, but for now 300 shillings is really tough for us.
Enough food to feed 400 million people on planet Earth. So when the farmers on the battlefields aren't planting or aren't harvesting, what impact do you think that's going to have? Catastrophe knocking and looming on the door for the fall. It will be not a price issue, but a supply issue, availability of food for people around the world, and that will be a catastrophe on top of a catastrophe.
I'll show you the second one again.
Helping put food on the table. Community kitchens like this are starting up around Sri Lanka as people struggle with its worst economic crisis in more than 70 years. Food inflation has hit nearly 60%, and many people are finding it difficult to cope.
Most of these community who are coming today or coming are surviving with 2 meals. So we are giving them the responsibility of surviving for 1 meal, and we are saying, like, we will support you with 1 meal, but a good healthy meal.
Few now get to eat this well.
It's very difficult. We rarely get food like this. Only my husband is working, but what he earns for a day is not enough to feed the 3 of us now.
Tax cuts 3 years ago slashed government revenue by more than $2 billion. The tourism industry was then damaged by the Easter bombings and the pandemic. Now there is no money to import fuel, medicine, cooking gas or food.
Right now, actually, our main focuses are on food banks, on community kitchens, and again, long to medium-term community gardens and home gardens, because we can give rations, but it's so short-term.
The government is appealing for help.
We urgently require the assistance of our friends in the international community to ensure that our immediate needs in terms of the importation of essential medicines, food supply, and fuel.
India and China have sent food and medicine in recent days. The opposition says the government has weakened the economy through populist policies and mismanagement. A nationwide campaign dubbed Gota Go Home has been running for 2 months, calling on the president to resign. The government is seeking a loan package from the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. Critics say it'll take too long, even if agreed, and people need action now.
Tens of thousands of Sri Lankans are going hungry amid the country's worst economic crisis in decades. Community kitchens like this can only feed a fraction of them. Lila Fernandez, Al Jazeera, Colombo.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is obviously a very critical issue globally. It is already affecting us, perhaps not in food supply as such, but already affecting us in respect of fuel increase, the price of fuel increase. It's affecting us in respect of the price of wheat rising up significantly. You can see that the Ukraine area feeds 400 million people in the world. There's actually shortage of bread. Bread for the people in Africa, in some parts of Africa, like North Africa, Middle East, is like dal or cassava for us. That's the staple diet. They don't have any other diet. People are clamoring over each other, they're beating each other up to get one loaf of bread, or those pita breads that you see. We currently don't have that situation in Fiji, but the situation obviously globally is getting very dire. And that's a very fundamental issue. All of your different organizations may be focused on respective areas. Some of you may be focused, for example, on water and sanitation. Some of you may be focused on other aspects of development. But food obviously is a critical issue. The cost of things is obviously a critical issue. All of you are wearing clothes, the fabric of which is imported. All of you, some of you are wearing lipstick. Not all of you are wearing lipstick. That's all imported. The carpet in this hotel, the floor is imported. The watches, the shoes are all imported. The cars outside are all imported. The lights, the ceiling, this mic that I'm using, this screen, everything is imported. This computer is imported. Pacific Island countries obviously have a higher tendency of importation. Some Pacific Island countries obviously have a higher rate of importation. Some Pacific Island countries obviously import basic food items. We in Fiji have dalo, cassava, bhaji, bhindi, bora, bele, uto. We have those supplies. We need to obviously enhance the supplies. We need to be able to learn to know how to change our food habits. Some of you may be too used to roti, purini, bambakau, pani keke, bread. These are all made from imported ingredients. Of course, flour is price controlled in Fiji, but if the landed cost of that wheat that comes to Fiji is increased, then obviously the price of that will increase. If the price of fuel used to be $25 a barrel only about 18 months ago, and today is about $120 a barrel, the bus operators will say, you have to increase the bus fare, otherwise I can't operate the bus, which is a reality. All of those things actually have an impact. So it is even a greater need now for civil society groups to work in collaboration with government, as opposed to diverging away from what government is doing. This is not a time to actually have your own little territorial gains or maintain territoriality. We need to have a collaborative approach. Economic development cooperation is critically important, notwithstanding the fact that you have the Istanbul Principles. Istanbul Principles obviously talks about the recognition of civil society groups in terms of focusing on development. Unfortunately, and I have to say this, a lot of civil society groups in Fiji think that you only are able to assert yourself if you are different or an anathema to the principles of what government is proposing. That is not the way it works. Many countries in the world, you see civil society groups working hand in hand with government to address fundamental issues such as this. We have the Disability Forum that has been working with the Electoral Commission. So today we have, and never had before, in the regulations of the electoral running of the elections, in regulations about how persons with disability will have the ability to access facilities that will make it a lot more conducive for them to vote. We've never had that before. And that has only come about because of the fact that there has been collaboration between all the key stakeholders. So my message to you, ladies and gentlemen, this morning would be to be able to have a collaborative approach, to be able to ensure that the development goals that we want to achieve is done in a partnership. I was asked 2 nights ago that FCOS has said that people in Fiji are suffering in a very tragic manner, and that people are, on rubbish dumps and selling, metal, I think they were saying, scrap metal to earn a living. These things get blown out of proportion. I'm not saying that there are people who are not poor. There are people who are poor. But unfortunately, the statement did not actually mention about all the assistance that's been given. The statement did not mention the fact that everybody on poverty alleviation in Fiji or social welfare received a $50 top-up. It did not mention the fact that, notwithstanding the fact that we had 50% of government revenue slashed in the past 2 years, $4 billion lost in foreign exchange, $2 billion decrease in our GDP, that we still maintain poverty alleviation. We still maintain all the welfare assistance. We still maintain free education. We still maintain free textbooks, access to bus fares. So I do not see statements taken out of context and then highlighted. It gives a completely wrong impression of what is happening. Even policymakers or even the bureaucrats will say, hey, we are doing so much and all they're focusing is on this. And some media organizations will, of course, blow it out of proportion. The fact is, it is election year. So everybody wants to be better than somebody else. But I'm here talking to you as a government in terms of what we have been rolling out as a policy. We have the same message for our development partners too. Because sometimes we see that even within the different development partners, even an organization like the UN, you'll find different arms of this trying to get a few runs on the board, trying to compete with each other as to which NGO, which government ministry will actually get to use their line of development, their line of cooperation. What we've also said to them is that you all need to come together as one. We cannot, for example, have UNICEF going to one agency and then going to another agency, or some other arm of the UN going to some other ministry or NGO. And there's no, what we call, there's duplication of resources. Resources are limited. Even resources from the NGO, UN is limited. We pay the entire rent of all the UN agencies in Fiji. Many of the projects that the UN rolls out, I should say, is funded on a bilateral basis. It's whether Australia, New Zealand, or USA, or whatever country it is. I mean, USA does not do that much through the UN, but Australia, New Zealand, European countries. So my message to you, please, and I urge you, that we have this period where there is a lot of turbulence globally. Not many people knew that Ukraine is a breadbasket of the world. Not many people knew before this that it feeds about 400 million people. Not many people knew that Russia is the third largest producer of oil. So we now know these facts. We now also know that all the economic pundits are saying that inflation will continue to rise. God forbid if Russia invades another country. 2 days ago there was an issue with Lithuania. Now, I'm not saying that it'll blow out, but it may. So we have to be prepared for it. So you as NGOs, as civil society groups, as media organizations, what are you doing in respect of how do you intend to be able to tackle these issues? To be able to have a collaborative approach? Have you made submissions, or are you going to make submissions on the budget that's about to be rolled out? We rolled out in excess of $200 million through the $90 payout, the 2 rounds of $50, and the 2 rounds of now famous $360. Applications were made on the phone. Nobody had to go and queue up outside the district officer or the commissioner's office or Ministry of Poverty and Alleviation or some other government agencies. You actually applied on the phone. It took less than 3 minutes. And money was paid instantaneously when it was rolled out. We could have paid the $110 million in one day, even in an hour. But we didn't because we stretched it out over a week. We didn't want everybody queuing up and going to, Vodafone and Digicel all at once. So there are new ways of obviously rolling out services. There's new way of rolling out welfare services. There's still a lot of people who earn less than $30,000 a year who have not signed up for the EFL subsidy. I urge you through your respective agencies to please inform those people. Because any household that earns less than $30,000 a year, we pay 50% of the electricity cost. Government subsidizes that. Any household that has household income less than $30,000 a year, we give them 90,000 liters of free water every year, or subsidized water, I should say. So, ladies and gentlemen, I played these videos, and they may seem dramatic, but it's actually a reality. It is having a huge impact. The cost of a container before the pandemic from New Zealand to Australia was $5,500. Today, that same container costs $16,500. Completely out of our control, completely of your control, out of your control, completely out of government's control. That's the global economic dynamics at play at the moment. We are told by shipping companies that the freight costs should actually come down by September, October. God willing, it will. Because China was actually in lockdown. It's the largest manufacturer in the world. When it's locked down, all the containers are locked down, so there's a shortage of containers. Long beans before a cyclone cost $2 a bundle. After the cyclone, long beans is $5 in Fiji. Yongona before Cyclone Winston was $85 a kilo in Suva. After Cyclone Winston, $185 a kilo. Supply-demand issue. And that's precisely what's happening. You saw that head of FAO saying it's more of a supply-demand issue. USA has the largest oil reserves. They're not releasing it. They want to be the last country holding the oil reserves. There's a lot of economics, a lot of financial machinations taking place. What we can do, how can we respond? How can we, for example, we'd love to hear from you in the budget consultations. How best do you think we can assist or target those people who need more assistance? What is a practical way of rolling it out? We also know that people steal from the system too. The first time we rolled out the $90, we said $90 per household. But we have 5 people from the same household applying. What we call chorrowing from the system. Then of course we reduced it from $90 to $50. We said, okay, $50 per person. So you can have 5 people from the same household getting $50 each. 2 rounds of that. Then of course we did the 360. Some people, of course, with the 360 drank it all in beer. But very few people did. Most people utilized the 360 for very useful means or necessities. Some people paid rent. Some people bought shoes. They bought food. They bought clothes for their children. And even if they spend $10 on beer, that's okay. My point is that you need that economic robustness going on. You need people to have access to facilities. We would love a situation that you can walk into a shop and we know how much money you earn, so you get a discount or government subsidized. That's one of the best ways of dealing with it. Some countries have what we call, for decades, they've had what we call a food subsidization program or food ration. This is why government is investing very largely and heavily into the digital space, because then we have better accounting systems. Then we know exactly who needs what assistance. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to give you some food for thought. And in the interest of time, I would have loved to have taken some questions from you. I have 5 minutes. So I'd like to end it there. And hopefully I provide food for thought for you to be able to think over the next day or so as to how you can make contributions. What are some of the practical issues? And what we've also seen is that sometimes certain civil society groups, in order to get funding, write proposals that may not necessarily be, very practical. We've been told by some of the development agencies. So please, I urge you, organizations like AFCOS can provide that training, can provide that ability to help respective NGOs, civil society groups to focus on the key mandate, and then you'll be able to achieve that. And we want to work with all of you. We must work in a collaborative spirit, and an ideal outcome, or not ideal, an outcome that is beneficial to all members of our society, to all Fijians, and of course, from the Pacific Islands perspective, to all the other Pacific Islanders. Vinaka Vakalevu, and thank you very much.